The crash. The air tasted of metal and regret, not the familiar regret of Commander Theo Bennett's failed marriages, but the sharper tang of imminent corporate budget reviews. Mayday, mayday, craft experiencing catastrophic, the rest dissolved into static as the escape pod hurtled toward the dusty surface of the uncharted moon. Theo had exactly two coherent thoughts: first, that his employers at Galactic Corp would dock his pay for the escape pod, and second, that dying while filing expense reports was the universe's cruelest joke. The pod hit the ground with a noise that sounded remarkably like the word splotch, which was definitely not in any standard aerospace manual. The impact threw Theo against his harness with enough force to remind him why his doctor had warned him about cholesterol. When the dust settled and his organs rearranged themselves into approximately the right positions, he ran a systems check. Life support, operational. Communications, dead as his career prospects. Navigation, optimistically indicating he was simultaneously on Mars, in deep space, and inside a black hole. Perfect, he muttered, unbuckling himself. Just absolutely stellar work, Bennett. First human to discover Schrödinger's navigation system. Theo had been Galactic Corp's least remarkable exobiologist for 15 years. His job primarily consisted of filing reports about barren moons that contradicted the company's marketing materials about limitless exploitable resources. This mission was supposed to be his last before an ungraceful retirement to a cubicle in the basement of Galactic Corp's Earth headquarters. The airlock hissed open, revealing a landscape of dark, rocky terrain under a starlit sky dominated by an enormous gas giant that filled nearly a quarter of the visible heavens. Its bands of swirling amber and cream cast an eerie glow across the surface. Theo checked his suit readings. Atmosphere, toxic but not immediately lethal. Temperature, cold enough to freeze tears but not blood. Gravity, mercifully similar to Earth's, meaning his remaining years wouldn't be spent with his spine decompressing like an accordion. He took a cautious step onto the alien surface. Research log, Day 1. I have crashed on an uncharted moon orbiting what appears to be a gas giant in the... He paused as his helmet's navigation system unhelpfully suggested he was in the vicinity of Error 404, star system not found. He sighed. On an uncharted moon somewhere in the galaxy. My emergency beacon is transmitting, but given my distance from established shipping lanes, rescue could take weeks or months. If anyone finds this log, please tell my ex-wives they can fight over my negative bank balance. The discovery. Theo trudged toward a nearby ridge, his headlamp illuminating the rocky ground. The moon's surface was mostly flat, interrupted by occasional craters and unusual crystalline formations that glittered in his light. As he crested the ridge, the beam caught something reflective in a small depression below. Debris from his ship, perhaps. He carefully made his way down. What he found wasn't wreckage, but a nest of some kind, fashioned from an amalgamation of dark, fibrous material and, was that metal? Inside the nest lay two small creatures, each about the size of a Terran house cat. Their bodies were covered in iridescent blue scales that caught the light like sapphires. Small, spiny ridges ran down their backs, and their tails ended in delicate points. As his light hit them, they stirred, revealing luminous golden eyes. Holy statistical anomaly, Theo breathed, all thoughts of rescue temporarily forgotten. Extraterrestrial megafauna. He crouched for a closer look. The creatures made soft chirping sounds, stretching diminutive wings that seemed too small for flight. Their heads were distinctly reptilian, with small horns and ridged snouts. You're certainly not puppies, he murmured as one of them tilted its head at him. More like, space dragons. No, that's ridiculous. I'm a scientist, for heaven's sake. He paused. But also, you're totally space dragons. The larger of the two creatures cautiously approached him, sniffing at his gloved hand. Years of training told Theo to maintain distance from unknown alien fauna. Years of crushing loneliness told him to reach out. He compromised by extending one finger, which the creature promptly nuzzled. I should document this properly, he said, trying to recall his xenobiological training while fighting the overwhelming urge to coo at the creature. Subject appears to be a juvenile reptilian species with the most adorable little face. Yes, you do. Who's a good extraterrestrial anomaly? The creature chirped again, a sound that registered somewhere between a bird's song and a dial-up modem connecting. Its companion joined it, both now examining Theo with obvious curiosity. Neither showed signs of fear or aggression, which was either extremely fortunate or the prelude to him becoming an alien snack. I should name you, Theo decided. For scientific purposes, of course. You'll be Blueberry. He pointed to the slightly larger one. And you're Cobalt. The smaller creature sneezed, producing a tiny spark of blue light. On second thought, maybe Sparky is more appropriate. The storm. A distant rumbling interrupted their introduction. Theo looked up to see dark clouds gathering on the horizon with unnatural speed. The wind picked up, carrying particles of dust that pinged against his helmet. The dragon creatures huddled together, making distressed noises. Storm coming, Theo observed. And I'm guessing you two aren't fans. Making a decision that his graduate advisor would have failed him for, he gently gathered both creatures in his arms. Let's get you somewhere safe. The creatures didn't protest as he carried them back to the escape pod. Once inside, he created a makeshift habitat from storage containers and emergency blankets. The dragons, for lack of a better term, explored their new environment with curious chirps, occasionally sparking small blue flames from their nostrils when excited. Fascinating, Theo muttered, recording observations on his tablet. Apparently capable of bioluminescence and potentially some form of plasma generation. Completely contradicts established xenobiological classifications. He paused, watching them play fight over a ration packet. Also ridiculously cute. As night fell fully, the storm intensified. The pod rocked with each gust of wind, but the dragons seemed unconcerned, having curled up together in their makeshift nest. Theo envied their ability to sleep through imminent disaster, a skill he'd never mastered despite years in corporate meetings. He was almost dozing himself when a notification pinged on his helmet display. The external sensors were detecting movement. Large movement. Theo fumbled for the external camera controls, bringing up a grainy night vision feed of the area around the pod. Something massive was circling outside. Computer, enhance image, he commanded, forgetting momentarily that his pod's AI had the processing power of a toaster. The image remained stubbornly pixelated, but one thing was clear, whatever was out there was at least 3 times his size. The dragons awoke suddenly, alert. Their spines rose like warning flags, and they made sounds unlike anything he'd heard from them before, low, resonant thrums that he felt more than heard. They stared at the pod's door with unblinking focus. I'm thinking those might be your parents, Theo whispered. And I'm thinking they might not appreciate me bringing you home like lost kittens. A heavy impact shook the pod, nearly knocking him off his feet. Through the hull, he could hear something large moving around outside, occasionally scraping against the metal with what sounded like claws the size of dinner plates. Blueberry and Sparky exchanged glances, then looked at Theo with what he could have sworn was concern. The parents. The scraping stopped. In the sudden silence, Theo could hear his own breathing and the soft chirping of the dragon babies. Then came a sound that made his blood freeze, a deep, resonant call that seemed to vibrate through the pod's hull and into his bones. Blueberry and Sparky immediately responded with their own calls, high-pitched versions of the same sound. The conversation that followed was unlike anything in Theo's xenobiological experience. The creatures outside, clearly the parents, were communicating with their offspring through the pod's walls. Well, Theo said quietly, this is either going to be a touching family reunion or the most exotic way anyone's ever been eaten. The babies looked at him again, and Sparky did something unexpected. The little dragon waddled over to Theo's leg and gently head-butted his knee, making a soft trilling sound. Are you trying to tell them I'm okay? Theo asked incredulously. Another impact shook the pod, but this time it was different, more controlled, almost like a knock. The external camera showed a massive shadow moving past the lens, and for a moment, Theo caught a glimpse of an eye the size of a dinner plate, glowing with the same golden light as the babies. The dragon parents called again, and this time the babies responded by moving to the airlock door. They looked back at Theo expectantly. "Oh no," Theo said. "No, no, no. I am not opening that door. Your parents are the size of small buildings, and I'm basically a snack with legs." But Blueberry made a sound that was unmistakably plaintive, and Sparky joined in with what could only be described as baby dragon whimpering. The sound from outside grew gentler, almost patient. Theo stared at the door controls. Every instinct screamed at him not to open it. But looking at the two small creatures who had somehow crawled into his heart in the span of a few hours, he found himself reaching for the airlock release. "If I die," he announced to no one in particular, "I want it on record that this was a statistically improbable way to go." He opened the door. The first thing that hit him was the scale. The adult dragons were enormous, easily 20 feet long, with wingspans that seemed to stretch across half the landing site. Their scales were deeper blue than their offsprings, with streaks of silver that caught the gas giant's light. But their eyes held the same gentle intelligence he'd seen in the babies. The larger adult, presumably the mother, lowered her massive head to Theo's level. Her nostrils flared as she sniffed him, and he tried very hard not to think about how easily those jaws could snap him in half. Then she did something completely unexpected. She made a soft rumbling sound, almost like a purr, and very gently nudged him with her snout. It was unmistakably a gesture of thanks. The choice. What followed was the most surreal family reunion in galactic history. The parent dragons examined their offspring with obvious relief, nuzzling them gently and making soft crooning sounds. Blueberry and Sparky chirped excitedly, occasionally pointing at Theo with their tiny claws as if telling their parents about their adventure. The father dragon, distinguished by slightly larger horns and a more prominent ridge along his back, approached Theo next. Instead of the threatening gesture Theo expected, the massive creature lowered himself to the ground in what could only be described as a bow. "You're welcome," Theo said uncertainly. "I mean, they're good kids. Very well behaved for, aliens." The mother dragon made a series of complex sounds, and Theo was startled when his helmet's universal translator, a feature he'd forgotten existed, crackled to life. "Gratitude, safe, little ones, storm dangerous. Your translator works on them?" Theo asked his AI incredulously. "Linguistic patterns detected. Translation accuracy approximately 60%, the AI replied in its maddeningly cheerful voice. More sounds from the mother, and the translator offered, "Must return, but, you." The father joined the conversation, his deeper voice translating as, "Home, far, journey, young ones, safe place." Suddenly, Theo understood. They were nomads, travelers, and the storm had separated them from their babies. The little ones were too young for the long journey ahead, but this moon, with its stable climate and abundant crystalline formations, could provide a safe haven. But they were asking him something. The parents looked at him expectantly, and the babies had moved to sit beside him, one on each side. The translator crackled again, "Guardian, protector, stay, watch, young ones. You want me to babysit?" Theo asked. "I mean, I'm flattered, but I'm waiting for rescue, and I don't exactly have a resume in dragon childcare." The parents exchanged glances, and the mother approached his crashed pod. She examined it with what Theo could only describe as professional interest, then breathed a stream of superheated plasma at specific points on the hull. The metal began to glow and reshape itself. "What are you doing to my," Theo began, then stopped as he realized what was happening. She was repairing it. Not just repairing it, but improving it. The hull was stronger now, and systems that had been damaged in the crash were somehow functioning again. The father dragon moved to the communication array and did something similar. Suddenly, Theo's emergency beacon showed a much stronger signal. "You're giving me a choice," Theo realized. "Fix my ship so I can leave, or stay and help raise your children." The parents nodded, an eerily human gesture from such alien beings. Theo looked at Blueberry and Sparky, who were watching him with those luminous golden eyes. He thought about his life on Earth, his dead-end job, his empty apartment, his string of failed relationships. Then he thought about the past few hours, about the simple joy of discovering something wonderful, about the trust these creatures had placed in him. "How long until they're old enough to travel with you?" he asked. The translator worked. 2 years, maybe 3. "And you'll come back for them?" "Promise, always, family." Theo made his decision. He reached over and switched off his emergency beacon. "Well," he said to the dragons, who were all watching him now, "I guess I'm about to become the galaxy's first professional dragon sitter. I hope you don't mind if I document everything. This is going to make one hell of a research paper." The parents spent the next hour showing him things about their offspring, what they ate, how to recognize when they were tired or sick, the sounds they made when they were happy versus scared. It was like the most important babysitting instruction session in history. As the gas giant set on the horizon, the parents prepared to leave. They had a herd to find, migration routes to follow. But first, they did something that brought tears to Theo's eyes. They both touched their foreheads to his helmet in a gesture of trust and respect. Then they nuzzled their babies one last time, crooning soft promises in their musical language. The takeoff was spectacular. The adult dragons spread their massive wings and leaped into the sky with a grace that defied their size. They circled once, calling down to their young, then disappeared into the star-filled night. Blueberry and Sparky watched until their parents were out of sight, then turned to Theo with expectant chirps. "Well," Theo said, looking at his new family, "I suppose we should get you two ready for bed. And tomorrow, we'll start working on building a proper home." As he settled the dragon babies into their nest, Theo Bennett realized that sometimes the worst day of your life could become the beginning of the best. He had found his purpose among the stars, in the most unlikely way possible. Years later, when the parents returned to collect their now-grown offspring, they would find a thriving research station and a human who had become legendary among their kind as the dragon friend of the Outer Rim. But that night, Theo simply sat watching two baby dragons sleep, marveling at the strange turns life could take, and feeling, for the first time in years, exactly where he belonged. The end.